You're invited to participate in a true multimedia experience coming to a home near you. LCM TV is bringing Lake County into the new millennium with news, live broadcast, information, music, talk shows, and local programming, all streaming in high definition online and soon to be on your Roku box. Join us at lcm-tv.com or be a part of our studio audience. You can also watch the shows at lakecomagazine.com as we provide programming to inform, enlighten, and maybe even enrage you. On Lake County Magazine Talk Show with Terry and Pete the Tax Guy, Wednesday mornings at 9 a.m. Like racing? Try the Checkered Flag Show, hosted by Ace Naylor on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. All ages and divisions in regional and national fields. Joni Lane brings a positive light to you every Monday at 3 p.m. Pasha Space brings an international flair as they discuss ecological, health, and social issues in Haiti with people around the world. End up your week with positive, conscious sounds on Saturday at 9 a.m. with Sister T on the Bridge. This show is also simulcast on KMEC 105.1 FM in Ukiah. Our latest show, LCM TV News, is brought to you live Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at noon, and rebroadcast at 6:30 p.m. and noon daily, Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday, featuring national, regional, and local news, weather, and sports. We have it all here for you on your local TV station, LCM TV. Join us online and soon on Roku, giving you access to all the best Lake County has to offer. We are LCMTV.com, your multimedia connection. Tune in for the fun. It's live TV at its best.
Good afternoon. Welcome to LCM TV News at noon. We're not your normal news. I'm Pete Schiffman.
I'm Megan Berger.
Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Greek voters delivered a shocking rebuff to Europe's leaders on Sunday, decisively rejecting the deal offered by the county's creditors in a historic vote that could refine Greece's place in Europe and shake the continent's financial stability. The Interior Ministry reported that almost 90% of the vote tallied. 61% of the voters had said no to a deal that would have imposed greater austerity programs on the beleaguered country. The no votes carried virtually every district in the country, handing a sweeping victory to Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras, a leftist who came to power in January, vowing to reject new austerity measures, which he called an injustice and economically self-defeating. Late last month, he walked away from negotiation in frustration at the creditors' demands, called the referendum, and urged Greeks to vote no as a way to give him more bargaining power. Now the creditors' offer is no longer on the table. There remains the possibility that they could walk away, leaving Greece facing default, financial collapse, and expulsion from the Eurozone, and in the worst case from the European Union. Even before the voting was over, some European leaders began making efforts to contain the potential damage. Chancellor Angela Merkel of Germany said she would travel to Paris on Monday to meet with the French President, François Hollande, for a joint assessment of the situation after the Greek referendum. Later, the two leaders called for a European Union summit meeting on Tuesday.
The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court ruled late last Monday that the National Security Agency may temporarily resume its one secret program that systematically collects records of Americans' domestic phone calls in bulk. But the American Civil Liberties Union said Tuesday that it would ask the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, which had ruled that the surveillance program was illegal, to issue an injunction to halt the program, setting up a potential conflict between the two courts. The program lapsed on June 1st when a law on which it was based, Section 215 of the U.S. Patriot Act, expired. Congress revived the provision on June 2nd with a bill called the USA Freedom Act, which said the provision could not be used for bulk collection after 6 months. The 6-month period was intended to give intelligence agencies time to move to a new system in which the phone records, which include information like phone numbers and the duration of calls but not the contents of conversations, would stay in the hands of phone companies. Under those rules, the agency would still be able to gain access to the records to analyze links between callers and suspected terrorists. But complicating matters, in May, the Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit in New York ruled in a lawsuit brought on by the ACLU that Section 215 of the Patriot Act could not legitimately be interpreted as permitting bulk collection at all. Congress did not include language in the Freedom Act contradicting the Second Circuit ruling or authorization bulk collection for even the 6-month transition. As a result, it was unclear whether the program had a lawful basis to resume in the interim.
Secretary of State John Kerry said Sunday that the U.S. and Iran are closer to reaching a final nuclear deal, but expressed uncertainty about hitting their 40-hour deadline, saying negotiations could go either way. Kerry made his comments during a break in one-on-one talks in Vienna with Iran Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif. Zarif said Saturday that he and Kerry's teams made significant headway by reaching a tentative agreement on some sanctions now being imposed on Iran for its nuclear program. However, the deal must be approved by diplomats from 5 other world powers involved in the talks, who are returning to Vienna on Sunday. In addition, major sticking points remain on such issues as inspections of Iranian nuclear-related facilities. If a deal is clinched by Tuesday, it would set up a decade of restrictions on Iran's nuclear program in exchange for relief from international sanctions. Tuesday's deadline is the latest that has been set for a comprehensive pact that would replace the interim deal the world powers and Iran reached in November 2013. The package was extended 3 times, most recently on June 30th.
An escaped murderer who was shot after 3 weeks on the run has been moved from a New York hospital to another maximum security prison. The State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision says that David Sweat was moved from the Albany Medical Center early Sunday. He was taken to the 5 Points Correctional Facility in Romulus. The prison is about 200 miles west of Albany. Officials say Sweat initially will be in the infirmary and then housed in a single cell in a 23-hour confinement unit. Sweat and Richard Matt had escaped from the Clinton Correctional Facility in Dannemora near the Canadian border in early June. Matt was killed June 26th, and Sweat was captured June 28th after being shot by a trooper as he fled through a field near the Canadian border. Sweat had been staying at the Albany Medical Center, where he has been revealing details of his escape to the authorities.
A little technical problem there, folks. We apologize. Under legislation approved this past week by the Senate Intelligence Committee, social media sites such as Twitter and YouTube would be required to report videos and other content posted by suspected terrorists to federal authorities. The measure contained in 2016 intelligence authorization, which still has to be voted on by the full Senate, is an effort to help intelligence and law enforcement officials detect threats from the Islamic State and other terrorist groups. It would not require companies to monitor their sites if they do not already do so, said a committee aide who requested anonymity because the bill had not yet been filed. The measure applies to electronic communication service providers, which includes email services such as Google and Yahoo. Companies such as Twitter have recently stepped up efforts to remove terrorist content in response to growing concerns that they had not done enough to stem the propaganda. Twitter removed 10,000 accounts over a 2-day period in April. The bill passed in a closed session Wednesday is modeled after a federal law, the 2008 Protect Our Children Act. Industry officials privately called it a bad idea. Asking internet companies to proactively monitor people's posts and messages would be the same thing as asking your telephone company to monitor and log all your phone calls, text messages, all your internet browsing, all the sites you visit, said one official who spoke on the condition of anonymity because the provision is not yet public. Considering the vast majority of people on these sites are not doing anything wrong, this type of monitoring would be considered by many to be an invasion of privacy. It would also technically be difficult. National security experts, meanwhile, said the measure makes sense. Under the bill, which is expected to be filed as early as today, any online company that obtains actual knowledge of any terrorist activity shall provide to the appropriate authorities the facts or circumstances of the alleged terrorist activity.
The sheriff of Maricopa County in Arizona has long been known for jailing inmates in tents and pink underwear and cracking down on illegal immigration. But an upcoming trial will force Sheriff Joe Arpaio to answer for a pattern of behavior that his critics have long found deeply troubling. The U.S. Justice Department is putting Arpaio on trial next month in a civil rights case that will focus in part on how the sheriff investigated and criminally charged people who crossed him from 2007 to 2010. The cases include officers leading a judge out of his chambers and arresting newspaper executives and protesters who were critical of him. In addition, a county supervisor embroiled in a feud with the lawman was charged with dozens of felonies. Each of the investigations collapsed, and county taxpayers had to pay $8.7 million in lawsuits to people who said they were investigated on trumped-up allegations. The Justice Department decided against filing criminal abuse of power allegations against Arpaio, but went ahead with a civil case that will be heard the beginning of August 10th in Phoenix. The case comes as Arpaio is facing legal troubles on several fronts. The courts have stripped him of his powers to conduct the immigration patrols that made him a national political figure, and a judge is deciding whether to hold him in contempt of court for defying a key order in a racial profiling case. A separate criminal contempt hearing could be next. Joel Robbins, an attorney who is a longtime critic of the sheriff, said it's time for Arpaio to get called into court to answer for his method of operation in dealing with his critics. Critics say the sheriff's history of retribution sketches back to the late 1990s and continued until recently. They point to two secret investigations involving U.S. District Judge Murray Snow, who had ruled that the sheriff's deputies racially profiled Latinos and brought the contempt case. One investigation examined a claim that the judge's wife had allegedly told someone that Snow didn't want the sheriff to win re-election. The judge said the other investigation was intended to show an alleged conspiracy between Snow and federal authorities who are pressing the Justice Department's civil rights lawsuit against Arpaio. In addition, the retaliation claims the upcoming civil rights trial will focus on allegations that Arpaio's office punished jail inmates with limited English skills for speaking Spanish and discriminated against Latinos in business raids. The sheriff has denied the Justice Department's allegations and called the case against him a politically motivated attack. Arpaio had argued that he was trying to root out corruption in county government.
Having dealt with him for 20 years in Arizona, I'm afraid those accusations are absolutely correct. He did raids on the Hispanic community all the time, and we won't go any further on that, but glad to see it happening. Officials in 4 Gulf Coast states announced a $19 billion settlement with BP to resolve claims in connection with the devastating 2010 oil spill, ending years of litigation. Leaders of Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana said the settlement holds BP accountable for the Deepwater Horizon spill. The $18.7 billion is meant in part to compensate for economic losses and natural resource damages. This agreement is the result of 5 years of hard-fought litigation and intense scientific research, and it provides Louisiana the coastal restoration and compensation it needs following the Deepwater Horizon disaster. The settlement money will be used to resolve the Clean Water Act penalties, resolve natural resources damage claims, settle economic claims, and resolve economic damage claims of local governments. In arguing against such a high penalty, BP has said its spill-related costs already were expected to exceed $42 billion, even without the Clean Water Act fine. It's also unclear how much BP will end up paying under a 2012 settlement with individuals and businesses claiming spill-related losses. Costs incurred by BP so far include an estimated $14 billion for response and cleanup, and $4 billion in penalties announced after settlement of a criminal case with the government. Earlier this year, a federal judge in New Orleans concluded the third phase of a civil trial, pitting the oil giant against the federal government. He had already made 2 key rulings: that BP acted with gross negligence in the rig explosion that resulted in the spill, and that 3.19 million barrels of oil, nearly 134 million gallons, spewed into the Gulf as a result. BP had appealed both those rulings, which set the stage for a possible multi-billion-dollar Clean Water Act penalty.
After he left office as governor of Florida, Jeb Bush's net worth grew to at least $19 million from $1.3 million, a significant leap in wealth that reflects the power of his connections and the breadth of his entrepreneurial pursuits. Mr. Bush and his wife, Columba, reported $28.5 million in adjusted gross income from 2007, the year he left office, through 2013, according to tax returns he released on Tuesday. Nearly $10 million came from his speaking engagement. The Bush's income topped out at $7.3 million in 2013, the last of 33 years of returns he made public. The returns show that they paid $2.9 million in federal taxes on that income for an effective tax rate of 40%. Mr. Bush's disclosure of voluminous financial records comes early in a presidential campaign that has elevated the issue of candidates' wealth and the way it may distance them from ordinary Americans in an era of economic uncertainty. After he left state politics 8 years ago, Mr. Bush made clear that he wanted to make money. The mystery was just how much he made. The Bush campaign reported that the couple's total net worth is now between $19 million and $22 million. The The wealth of the America's political dynasties is emerging as a major theme of the 2016 campaign. And while the fortune amassed by Bill and Hillary Rodham Clinton, excuse me, dwarfs what Mr. Bush collected, the records show that he similarly had little difficulty leveraging his prominent name to gain millions of dollars in the private sector. Mr. Bush said his wealth has also allowed for significant charitable contributions. The couple reported $110,616 in donations on their 2013 tax return. In a statement on his website, Mr. Bush said they donated $739,000 to a charity from 2007 to 2014. The effective tax rate of 40% that Mr. Bush paid compares with the 13.9% rate that Mitt Romney, the 2012 Republican presidential candidate, reported paying in 2010, a figure that drew widespread criticism. The release of the returns 16 months before the general election is intended to position Mr. Bush as particularly open to scrutiny compared with other candidates. It includes filings for several years that had previously been disclosed during his campaigns for governor. The Bush campaign said he has requested extensions for filing in his 2014 taxes and his financial disclosure report, which will include details of his assets and liabilities.
Must be nice, $7.3 million. The U.S. unemployment fell to a 7-year low of 5.3%, and employers hired at a solid pace in June. But other gauges of the job market drew a bleaker picture. A wave of people stopped looking for work, and paychecks failed to budge. The figure captured the persistently uneven nature of the recovery from the Great Recession. The economy gained 223,000 jobs last month, and unemployment edged down from the 5.5% in May. That is the lowest jobless rate since April 2008, when it was 5%. Yet unemployment dropped this time, mainly because many people out of work apparently got discouraged and gave up looking for a job. The government doesn't count people as unemployed unless they're actively searching. At the same time, wages have stalled, rising just 2% over the past 12 months. The mixed data suggests the Federal Reserve may put off plans to raise short-term interest rates and to end the stimulus effort that began in 2008. A Fed increase would lead to higher rates for mortgages, auto loans, and other borrowing. The sluggish wage growth suggests that many employers see no need to raise pay to attract or retain workers, and that there are more people available for hire than the unemployment rate would indicate. Another sour note in the report was that construction companies failed to add any jobs in June. Manufacturing gained just 4,000 positions, but healthcare added 53,000 and retailers 33,000. Still, over the past 3 months, hiring has averaged a robust 221,000 per month. That shows that some employers are confident about consumer demand for their goods and services in the coming months. Auto sales and home sales have jumped to their highest level since 2007. And the economy is expected to grow at 2.5% annual rate in the second quarter. Yet Greece's debt crisis and a slowdown in China could also weigh on the U.S. growth this year.
A bureaucratic barrier to medical cannabis research has fallen. The Obama administration has dropped a review requirement that researchers working with no other drug faced. Last month, the Office of National Drug Control Policy announced that new cannabis research will no longer have to pass review by the Public Health Service, or the PHS, as well as the Food and Drug Administration. In May, a bipartisan group of lawmakers led by Representative Earl Blumenauer, a Democrat out of Oregon, had sent a letter to the Secretary of Health and Human Services calling for an end to the additional PHS review requirement. For the past 16 years, research studies on cannabis have been the only ones for which the government has required the extra step. The U.S. government has systematically impeded marijuana efficacy research, and the PHS review has played a large role in that stonewalling, said Sue Sisley, MD, whose research has been delayed. To see the government finally eliminate this waste of taxpayer dollars is a triumph and hopefully represents another historic shift in the drug policy reform. Since 2009, Dr. Sisley has been attempting to start a research study on using cannabis to treat post-traumatic stress disorder among veterans of the U.S. military.
In other cannabis news, American consumers expect to be able to check the labels of food products to determine what is in them. For products infused with medical cannabis, that is all the more important, but a new study finds that cannabis products may be more often mislabeled than not. Last fall, researchers from Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine collected edible medical cannabis products from dispensaries in San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Seattle. Their analysis, published this month in the Journal of the American Medical Association, found that THC and CBD content matched the labels in only 13 of the 75 different products tested. Accurate labeling considered to be anything measuring within 10% of the listed amount. THC content was less than the product label listed in 45 of the 75 samples, sometimes strikingly so. According to lead author Ryan Vandre, 2 products that were supposed to contain 100 milligrams of THC had only 2 to 3 milligrams. Perhaps even more problematic than patients not getting the medicine they pay for was the study's finding that 23% of the products contained more THC than the label indicated. The lag time between ingesting a product and feeling its effects make proper dosing tricky. Ingesting a more potent product than intended can be counterproductive to the therapeutic benefits sought and produce uncomfortable side effects. CBD was also consistently mislabeled or not labeled at all. Coming up next is the regional news, and we'll be right back.
SSS Multimedia is sending you smoke signals, providing their clients with the ultimate communication and multimedia marketing, distribution, production, and web-based services. They feature high-def video equipment and quality audio sound. SSS is your multimedia source, from graphics for business cards to television production, radio, live sound, and everything in between. SSS is sending you smoke signals. Get your message out with SSS Multimedia. For more information, call 707-701-6416 or email info@sssmultimedia.com.
And we're back with your regional news. The family of baby Ember Graham and the volunteers fanned out across Shasta County on Saturday and Sunday, looking for leads that may help in locating the 6-month-old who went missing from Happy Valley. About a dozen people, all relatives of Matthew Ryan Graham, the baby's father, began their search after a brief morning meeting in front of the Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 1934 in downtown Reading. Jamie Lee Graham, the baby's mother, was the sole representative from her side of the family. She said that was because members in her family were doing their get-together in the Clear Creek area and working with agency officials. Everybody copes differently, she said, but it did not mean that they were not supportive of her husband, Matthew Graham. Nobody thinks that he's capable, that there's no way he would ever premeditate or accidentally do something. Matthew Graham, 24, became a person of interest in the disappearance of Ember based on inconsistent statements that he made to Shasta County Sheriff's investigators after he reported his daughter missing from her crib early Thursday morning. His family said the inconsistencies can be explained. When things like this happen, everybody starts pointing fingers, said Matthew Graham's father, Wayne Graham. If anyone knew my son and had been around that baby, there's just no way. Graham remained in Shasta County Jail for the weekend over a probation violation.
Sonoma County Sheriff's personnel renewed their search today of Lake Sonoma for the body of a 14-year-old Bay Area boy who fell off an inner tube and disappeared in the water on Saturday. The Sheriff's Boat Patrol searched the lake surface for signs of the boy on Sunday. Divers sent cameras into the deep water and searched by video. The search will continue today and, if necessary, Tuesday. The missing teen has been celebrating the 4th of July with family members at the Lake Sonoma Resort in the lower part of the lake when he and his cousin floated away from the group across a deep channel on an inner tube. Someone on a personal watercraft was towing them back across the water shortly before 4 p.m. when both teens fell off the inner tube. Only one was able to swim ashore. The other teen, his name not yet made public, disappeared beneath the surface. Neither one of them wearing a life jacket. The Sheriff's Boat crew was already on patrol and was able to reach the area quickly, but as the search continued into the night, there were no sign of the missing youth. The teen presumed drowned was the second person to perish in Sonoma County waterways on Saturday. Early in the day, shortly after noon, a man in the early 20s drowned in the Russian River off Monte Rio Beach after going out on a floating raft with a friend's 2 children. His body was recovered from the bottom of the river several hours later. Authorities have not yet released his name.
Authorities also say a 7-year-old boy and a 12-year-old girl were killed and another person suffered critical injuries after their SUV careened off the side of a Southern California mountain road and plunged 40 feet. Los Angeles County fire officials say the vehicle went over an embankment Saturday evening in the hills above Azusa. Azusa Police Lieutenant Paul Dennis says that when the officers arrived, they found the SUV on its roof in a ravine. The 2 children were found dead inside the vehicle. Outside the vehicle. Dennis says a 32-year-old man, a 32-year-old woman, and a 13-year-old had various injuries. One of them was airlifted to a hospital in critical condition. Coroner's officials are withholding the names of the children, pending notification of family. The cause of the crash is under investigation as well.
California public health officials are warning consumers to avoid certain types of seafood caught in Monterey, Santa Cruz, and Santa Barbara counties. Last month, the California Department of Public Health said the internal organs of scallops, anchovy, crabs, and sardines from these coastal counties, in addition to recreational caught mussels or clams, could be dangerous to eat due to the presence of domoic acid, a naturally occurring toxin. Friday, CDPH extended its warning to apply to the meat of these types of seafood.
California regulators radically revamped the way electricity rates work in the state, approving changes Friday that will raise monthly utility bills for the most energy-efficient homeowners while giving many bigger energy users a break. The California Public Utilities Commission voted unanimously to narrow the gap between prices paid by people who use very little electricity and those who consume more. Over time, that gap has grown so wide that the most efficient Californians now pay less for electricity than the utility spends supplying it to them. California has long charged utility customers higher prices for using large amounts of electricity as a way to encourage conservation. And while the Commission's vote will benefit many homeowners who use more than average, the biggest energy hogs will now face a new penalty, a super user electric surcharge designed to prod them to conserve. In addition, most residential customers will now soon pay different prices for electricity use at different times of the day, with the highest prices likely hitting in the afternoon. The move, long studied by California officials, could reduce the strain on the state's power grid when electricity demand reaches its daily late afternoon peak. Shifting some electricity to use midday or evening, in turn, could help the state integrate more solar and wind power into the energy mix. Solar power plants hit their maximum output just after noon, while California's wind farms generate most of their electricity at night. The changes will be phased in by 2019. They affect customers at Pacific Gas and Electric Company, Southern California Edison, and San Diego Gas and Electric Company, not the customers in the municipal utilities, such as those serving Sacramento or Los Angeles. However, one element of the new rate reform package will start this year. The Commission approved a minimum bill for residential customers, deciding that each will pay at least $10 a month or $5 for low-income households. Most people already pay far more than that. But with many Californians installing home solar arrays and slashing their utility bills, the Commission wanted to ensure that all customers pay their share for maintaining the power grid. The reforms represent the largest changes in California utility bills since the state's electricity crisis 15 years ago. Electricity rates at the state's three big utilities currently are based on 4 escalating tiers of usage. But in the aftermath of the crisis, state legislators froze prices in the lowest 2 tiers. For years, all electricity rate increases to pay for new equipment, safety upgrades, or the state's expanded use of renewable power hit only the upper tiers and not the lower, letting the gap between them grow wider.
More electricity cost. A judge on Thursday rejected a request for a temporary restraining order against prosecutors by the company that built the Berkeley apartment complex where 6 people died in a balcony collapse. Judge Evelio Grillo of Alameda County Superior Court said Segway Construction, Inc. of Pleasanton had not shown evidence that it would suffer irreparable harm if the district attorney's investigators were to inspect the balcony and a second rotted deck without the company's participation. Prosecutors are under obligation to conduct a fair and impartial investigation, Grillo said during a hearing in his Oakland courtroom. Attorneys for the company filed a request for a court order last Monday, asking the Segway representatives be allowed to observe any evidence tests that investigators perform. The tests are part of a criminal investigation into the June 16th collapse of a rotted-out balcony in which 6 people were killed and 7 were injured. The day after the collapse, Berkeley officials had an identical balcony removed from the building, a move the Segway said allowed key evidence in the case to be destroyed. Like the balcony that failed, the second balcony's laminated wood support beams had been rotted by moisture. In court Thursday, Victoria Ursoff, an attorney for Segway, said the company wanted to preserve evidence for both the criminal case and lawsuits likely to be filed over the collapse. The investigation could even uncover exonerating evidence that clears Segway or other companies linked to the building. Outside court, O'Connor said an injunction been approved. Had an injunction been approved, it could have allowed future defendants to basically piggyback on, spy on, and maybe even control a criminal investigation.
A decision to strip Blue Shield of California of its tax-exempt status was justified by an audit that outlines the nonprofit health insurer's stockpiling of $4 billion in surpluses, state tax officials said in a report. The California Franchise Tax Board audit slammed Blue Shield for its extraordinarily high surpluses and for failing to offer more affordable coverage or other public benefits. Auditors found the insurer's operations are indistinguishable from those of its for-profit healthcare competitors. They found Blue Shield is not operating exclusively for the promotion of civic betterment or social welfare, the key test for preserving its exemption. Blue Shield is the state's third largest health insurer with 3.4 million customers, 5,000 employees, and $13.6 billion in revenue last year. Its tax-exempt status was revoked last August. Since March, Blue Shield has come under increasing scrutiny from regulators, lawmakers, and consumer groups over its massive financial reserves and its proposed purchase of a Medicaid insurer for $1.2 billion. The health insurer argued in favor of its tax exemption, pointing out to charitable giving of about $30 million annually and its voluntary 2% cap on profits. The auditors were not moved. They also expressed concern that job descriptions for top executives directed them to maximize profitability. These stated objectives, particularly those with stressed profitability, are inconsistent with an organization organized as a nonprofit which desires tax-exempt status, officials wrote. The company continues to appeal the state's revocation.
On that one, I totally agree with that. Blue Cross has billions of dollars in reserves that they could allocate towards premium reduction to the individuals. So on that note, on June 5th, the California Assembly passed a compromise bill by vote of 60-8 that would create a comprehensive regulatory structure for the state's medical cannabis program. The measure is now before the state Senate, where it is scheduled for hearings before the Health Committee on July 8th. AB 266 helps put aside issues that distract from ensuring access to medicine for patients in California, said ASA Executive Director Steph Scherer. Americans for Safe Access supports amending the proposed licensing structure to protect the historic diversity of the California's medical cannabis program and allow new entrants to the industry. Rival bills AB 266 and AB 34 were merged to create the measure which passed. Assemblymember Rob Bontuff from Oakland was made lead author of the new bill, with original proponent Ken Cooley from Rancho Cordova and Reginald Byron Jones Sawyer from Los Angeles listed as co-authors. AB 266 is supported by the Emerald Growers Association, which lobbies for small cannabis farms, as well as the Police Chiefs Association and the League of California Cities. AB 266 would create an Office of Marijuana Regulation to oversee the implementation of the licensing and regulation of commercial cannabis operations. Responsibility for various aspects of operations would be split between state agencies already tasked with similar oversight. The State Department of Agriculture would be in charge of the cannabis cultivation. The Department of Public Health would monitor cannabis testing, laboratory certification, and product safety. The Board of Equalization would be in charge of dispensaries and transportation. Tiers of licenses would be available based on the size of the operation, with separate licenses for cultivation, distribution, and transportation of cannabis. No licenses or permits would be required for patient collectors of 5 or fewer persons, so long as they were not selling medical cannabis products.
California State Treasurer John Chiang said today that Standard & Poor's Rating Services has raised its general obligation GO rating on the state of California from AA- to A+. Concurrently, S&P has raised
to AA- from A+.
From A+.
Read it over again. To AA-. It's going up to AA-.
Okay. Standard & Poor's Rating Services has raised its general obligation rating on the state of California to AA- from A+. Concurrently, S&P has raised the state's annual appropriation secured debt from A to A+. These actions would also result in the state's ratings being removed from the S&P's credit watch, a normal result for the review process. Our state has reached another important mile marker in its fiscal comeback. Through its sustained commitment to paying down debt and fiscal restraint in its latest annual spending plan, California has been rewarded with its highest credit rating since 2001. Today's good news was tempered by warnings that the Golden State's lack of affordable housing, unmet infrastructure needs, and growing liabilities stemming from not pre-funding state retiree health benefits are a real threat to the longer-term economic growth. We will be back with your local news.
The taxman's taken all my dough and left me in my stately home, blazing on a sunny afternoon. And I can't sail my yacht, he's taken everything I got. All I've got's this sunny afternoon.
Manticorp Tax and Accounting can help you minimize taxation, establish a corporate presence, and save you money. Our over 25 years of experience in domestic and international taxation and incorporation services makes us the best at what we do. Your first consultation at Manticorp is always free, and our discounted rates guarantee you will not end up paying for what you don't get. Try Manticorp today. For more information, call 707-701-6416 or email info@manticorpusa.com.
And welcome back, folks. Heard over the scandal this weekend. 2 people got into a fight in Spring Valley, and 2 got arrested on Pueblo Trail. Alcohol again, I guess. Subaru was pulling over people at Kids Corner and impersonating an officer. There was an ATV accident, but no details were available. A drunk trying to flee the scene of an accident was apprehended. Reportedly, the man was flown out by Reach due to being unresponsive, and 2 men were arrested at the fireworks. One of them had to be carried away by 4 cops. Really?
Who pulls over for
4
Subaru?
cops? We saw the patrol boat on the lake during the fireworks too, pulling all the boats over.
Yeah.
That was fun. Blue lights on the lake.
A sales strategy for Holiday Harbor will be a point of emphasis at the Lake County Board of Supervisors meeting on Tuesday. The property, which is comprised of 8 parcels, was acquired in 2008 and selected as the primary catalyst project to spur economic activity in Nice by the Lake County Redevelopment Agency, according to Lake County Administrative Officer Matt Perry. However, the recession and the dissolution of the Redevelopment Agency in 2012 halted any plans for the property, as funding and the ability to work with potential buyers was severely limited. During the past few years, the county has continued to operate the marina and made some improvements while waiting for the economy to recover. Because of stretched county resources, including both staff and money, as well as the economic recovery beginning, county staff is recommending to sell the property. After sending out requests for proposals, the county contracted with Fremont-based real estate broker Tim Vitran to develop a marketing strategy to sell Holiday Harbor, which will include a custom website. The board will discuss whether to sell all 8 parcels or only 6. If it is decided to keep 2 parcels under public ownership, the Nice Community Beach will be expanded. However, withholding the parcels may hinder the sale of property by limiting the amount of interested buyers and types of projects. In the event that all parcels will be sold, District 3 Supervisor Jim Steele requested time to hold a town hall meeting with the Nice community regarding the reduction in public beachfront access. Another issue is the nature of projects constructed at the site. The initial marketing plan was to attract a hotel development on the site and not allow a recreational vehicle park, Perry stated. However, the county does not have the ability to assist in a hotel development as the redevelopment agency once did. Perry added that a hotel may not be the most economically viable option for Holiday Harbor and recommended that a normal permitting process for any proposed project be followed.
My question is, why do they use an outside real estate firm to do the analysis? You telling me there's no one locally who can do that? More money going outside the county. District 3 Supervisor Jim Steele will be the guest speaker at the Lake County Democratic Club on Tuesday, July 14th at 6:30 p.m. He will discuss goals for his first year and address current issues in the county. Time will be allotted for questions and answers. Lake County Democratic Club meetings are held in the social hall of the Lower Lake Community United Methodist Church at 16255 2nd Street in Lower Lake on the second Tuesday of every month at 6:30 p.m. Meetings are open to the public. Membership is open to all registered Democrats. The Lake County Democratic Club is an official charter club of the Democratic Party of the Lake County. Visit the webpage at www.lakecountydemocraticclub.org. Contact us at lakecodemclub@gmail.com. Your turn.
Okay, Clear Lake celebrated the holidays in fine style Saturday with fireworks, a parade, the signature worm races, and what was called the best fireworks ever in the history of the celebration in that town. And we'll be back after this clip with the weather.
Fire truck's on fire, guys. I think no, for real. Oh, okay.
It was certainly fun.
Sure it was.
Can you turn on your mic?
Yeah,
And where were you on July 4th?
I was
Yes.
I did the commentary for that.
No, I meant in the evening with the
Oh,
fireworks.
I had to work.
God,
Yeah.
I know where you were. By the
No,
way,
I had to work and I could hear the fireworks outside. They were right outside my job, and everybody was in my my job's parking lot watching them. I
and
was
you were
outside.
the MC while we filmed the
Parade.
Clear
Parade.
Lake July 4th parade,
Which will be aired on our show on Wednesday.
which will be aired on our show on Wednesday, if you did not hear that from our director producer.
Yeah, I did get to get a glimpse of the fireworks out the kitchen window, but we had calls coming in.
Yeah, we
so-
were on our deck just sitting there waiting for my wife to push me in the water to be washed away, but that's all right.
I didn't.
No, she didn't push me. I'm still here. Okay,
All
weather.
right. Today we will see a mix of clouds and sun with the high around 90. Finally not in the 100 degrees.
Yeah.
Winds will stay out of the south-southwest at 10 to 20 miles per hour. Tonight will be cooler with clear skies and a low around 60. Winds will be stable out of the southwest, just the southwest.
No salsa?
Just out of the southwest at 10 to 20 miles per hour. Tomorrow there will be partly cloudy skies and a high of 89. Winds staying out of the southwest, reducing to 10 to 15. Tuesday night, there will be a few clouds overnight, and the low will be around 60 again. Winds maintaining speed and direction. And when we join you back on Wednesday, we will catch a few passing clouds, otherwise generally sunny. A cooling trend will continue as the high will be a cool 86, wind shifting to the south at 10 to 15 miles per hour.
And by the way, if it wasn't for those winds at night, we would have been hotter than heck.
Oh, it's still
Those winds
hot.
were nice. Yeah. At
You
least
can
we're
feel the winds inside your house.
At least we're cooler than Phoenix this time. And in sports, the United States has won its third Women's World Cup title and the first since 1999 with a 5-2 victory over Japan on Sunday behind a first half hat trick by Carly Lloyd. The Americans became the first country with 3 women's titles and got a measure of revenge for their loss in the 2011 final against Japan. Abby Wambach and Christy Ramponi, the only player remaining from the 1999 title team, both came on as subs late in what's expected to be their final World Cup appearances. Lloyd scored in the 3rd, 6th, and 16th minutes, the last a spectacular shot from midfield that beat the Japan goalkeeper. Lloyd scored the fastest hat trick in World Cup history, men's or women's, is the highest scoring Women's World Cup final. Lloyd voted the Golden Ball as player of the tournament, scored twice in the span of about 135 seconds as the U.S. led 2-0 by the 5th minute. Lauren Holiday also scored in the first half, and Tobin Heath added a goal in the 54th minute after Japan scored its own goal to cut the deficit to 4-2. Hope Solo won the Golden Glove as the top goalkeeper of the tournament. The title also vindicated the U.S. Soccer Federation for its decision in April 2014 to fire coach Tom Sermanni, who had replaced Pia Sanhaj the previous year, and replace him with Ellis, the British-born American who had been assistant on the coaching staff.
A horrific last-lap accident that left drivers fearing for Austin Dillon's safety muted Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s victory in the rain-delayed race at Daytona International Speedway. Earnhardt crossed the finish line at 2:41 a.m. Monday morning, filled with dread after Denny Hamlin's FedEx Toyota gets under Austin Dilley's Chevy and sends the number 3 car airborne. Dillon's car sailed upside down into the fence and then shot back onto the track. The car was on its roof and mangled when it was hit hard by Brad Keselowski. The car tore down a section of fencing, debris scattered into the grandstands, and crew members from several teams raced to check on Dillon. Multiple spectators were injured, and at least one person was sent to the hospital early this morning. The incident marked the second time in 2 years that fans were injured after a car went airborne into the catch fence during a professional race. As Dillon was making a turn into his number 3 car, he crashed into the fence, landing upside down on the track, and was struck by another participant's vehicle during the final lap of the Coke Zero 400 NASCAR Sprint Cup Series in Daytona Beach, Florida. A cloud of debris flew into the grandstands. Medical personnel evaluated 13 fans. 8 declined treatment, 4 were seen at the track, and 1 was taken to a local hospital in stable condition. Dillon was treated and later released from a care center at the track. Earnhardt Jr. said after the race he had no idea who was in the car. It was torn nearly in half, its engine ripped from under the hood, but admitted to being genuinely scared after the wreck.
Yeah, it's one of the worst accidents I've seen. Seattle rookie Mike Montgomery put together another fine start, allowing 6 hits and 1 run in 5 2/3 innings, while pitching the Mariners past the Oakland Athletics 2-1 on Sunday. Coming off 2 straight shutouts, Montgomery walked 1 and struck out 2. He was trying to join Randy Johnson as the only players in franchise history to pitch 3 consecutive shutouts. Fooled homered in the 3rd for the A's' only run. Shut out twice in this series, Seattle broke through in the 6th against Bassett. Robinson Cano was hit by a pitch, Nelson Cruz doubled, and both scored on Smith's single. The A's threatened in the bottom half before Mark Lowe replaced Montgomery and struck out pitch hitter Josh Reddick. The A's hit into double plays in 3 consecutive innings. Chris Bassett took the loss for the A's despite giving up only 5 hits and 2 runs. The A's have the day off today before taking on the New York Yankees Tuesday night.
Washington Nationals pitcher Jordan Zimmermann is in a groove, and he wouldn't let the San Francisco Giants get back on track. Zimmermann pitched 7 solid innings. Wilson Ramos snapped a tie with a 6th inning homer, and the Nationals beat the struggling Giants 3-1 on Sunday night, completing a 3-game sweep. Ramos added an RBI single with the 8th, and Bryce Harper, voted a starter on the National League All-Star team, had a double and single. Zimmermann, 7-5, has allowed 1 run over 22 2/3 innings and in his last 3 starts. Drew Storen pitched the 9th, picking up his 25th save for Washington, which has won 9 straight at home. The Giants, who lost manager Bruce Bochy and starting pitcher Ryan Vogelsong to 2 ejections, finished 0-6 on their road trip. Bochy and Vogelsong were ejected by plate umpire Phil Cousy in the 5th inning after complaining about the strike zone. The Giants had shown displeasure with Cousy's strike zone several times before Vogelsong's 1-2 pitch and Denard Span was called a ball.
Denard Span was called.
Oh. Bochy appeared to say something from the dugout. Cousy turned toward Bochy, and Vogelsong soon began walking toward the plate. Cousy ejected Vogelsong. Right-handed pitcher Chris Heston no-hit the Mets on June 9th at Citi Field, opposes them at AT&T Park on Monday night when the Giants open a 6-game homestand. Jonathan Neese pitches for the Mets.
Tell you what, I watched that game, and the umpire strike zone was all over the place. The Giants did get penalized a bit on that. And for the final word, one man from China was in for a big surprise when he discovered that his beloved pet dogs were, in fact, two black bears. Really? Wang Kayu from the village of Yan'an bought the cubs 2 years ago from a Vietnamese man while he was planting banana trees on the border on China and Vietnam. However, it was only when he read some conservation leaflets that he realized that his puppies were actually an endangered species. To begin with, Wang had no idea that there was anything unusual about his pets, and he bathed and groomed them every day. The proud owner also said the cubs were very well behaved and had healthy appetites. Really? Alarm bells only began ringing when the animals grew up, as alongside gaining a greater desire for food, the pair started looking less and less like dogs and weighed 100 pounds each. They also displayed strange behavior, such as killing and eating Wang's pet chickens. Okay. Despite this, it was only when Wang saw some leaflets from the local Public Security Bureau on endangered wild animals that he recognized that he had been illegally keeping Category 2 protected endangered animals by accident. After talking to his family, Wang decided to give the two bears to the local Forest Public Security Bureau in the hope that the police would be able to rehome the animals for him. On the 30th of June, the police came to take Wang's pets from the cages in which he had been keeping them, and they were taken in by the Yunnan Wild Animal Rescue Center. Fang Lingui, a spokesman for the Animal Rescue Center, said the animals have been identified as two Asian black bears, a male and a female, and are in good health. The Rescue Center is now working on suitable arrangements for the furry siblings. Asian black bears are classified as vulnerable by the International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources. This is mainly because of deforestation and people hunting them for their body parts. However, the large animals are not considered safe to keep as they frequently attack humans without any serious provocation. And that's our news for today. We'll be back. Our next live show is at 3 p.m. today, called A Positive Light. And tomorrow, on Wednesday, we will have LCM Talk Show with our host, Terry Larson, and myself, Pete Schiffman. And our guest on that show will be Bill Dodd at 9:30. Assemblyman Bill Dodd at 9:30. And 11 o'clock, we have, refresh my memory,
Was it a CHP officer?
CHP, the head of CPH, thank you. The head of CHP here in Clear Lake. Sorry about that, folks. Short-term memory loss here. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Pete Schiffman.
I'm Megan Berger.
And you all have a great day out there.
And enjoy this clip of the fireworks from Clear Lake.
Woohoo! Oh, I thought you were going to run the...